So I would like to invite to come up here a remarkable woman. Many of you know her because of her tireless work for peace. She is situated at Ground Zero now, but she too has been in prison. There are a lot of you out there, I think. So I would just like to give a very, very warm welcome to Jackie Hudson, who will speak to us keynote.
When they first started talking about going into Bangor to do a plowshare action, I said, it's impossible. Security at Bangor is noted to be about the tightest security. But this did not deter them. They proceeded with their plans, and they actually did what they set out to do. And you know, this is the story of so many plowshare actions. If you go to the history, if you Google plowshares, and here's some of the stories where the door automatically was open. The gate, which is never open, was open. The weapon was sitting right in front of them. I mean, it's like miracles. Miracles are part of plowshares. And this action fit right into that picture. Because not only through the outer fence, but through the two inner fences and actually within feet of the nuclear weapons storage. Kind of a miracle that maybe they were short-handed. So few military Marines right there at that site at that moment. So that was, the banner was unfurled, the blood was poured, the sunflower seeds were planted, and mission accomplished. This has been a teaching moment. And just to prove that, what I would like to ask is how many in this room learned something new about nuclear weapons through the course of this trial and festivals and now heading into sentencing? Could I just see a show of hands? Something new about nuclear weapons. How about something new about Bangor Trident submarine base? The fact that it's there.
Yeah.
International law. The workings of the federal court system. What a testimony, what a legacy that you five have left with us. This would not have happened without you. Thank you. Thank you. Now that we know so many new things, now that we know so many things that are dangerous to all of us, what do we do with this knowledge? Knowledge calls for action. And, you know, it just happens that Ground Zero, Center for Nonviolent Action, would invite invite every one of you on Saturday, May 7th, the day before Mother's Day, and to commemorate the origin of Mother's Day from Julia Ward Howe, where the mother said, "We will not send our sons to kill other mothers' sons." That's the origin of Mother's Day. On Saturday, May 7th, so you can still be home with your moms on Sunday, at 8:30. And the details are on our website, they're on Cyril's website at gzcenter.org. Just Google that, get the details, and I hope to see many of you are there with us, speaking the truth at the gates of this Badger Cemetery. Now for what I really am hoping for. It's an honor and a privilege to introduce a fellow Michigander. A man who by his words and actions has inspired many. One of 3 or 4 Catholic bishops who walks the talk. He's participated in civil resistance multiple times. A humble, fearless shepherd who has experienced and spoken truths in the courts of the United States. We're deeply grateful for Bishop Gumbleton's presence among us and for his participation in the sentencing scene tomorrow. Please give a warm welcome to our Bishop of Peace, Tom Gumbleton.
Thank you very, very much. I'm honored, very privileged to be here tonight with all of you. It's very inspired by all of you. I was thinking as I was sitting there looking at the program, a festival of hope, and how appropriate it is that in spite of all the dire things that are happening in our world, wars that are going on right now, and the continuing constant threat of nuclear war at any moment, we gather and we are filled with hope. And that's because, as you may remember from the second meeting today, and I remind us of this because we have to keep on building that hope and strengthening it, that St. Paul, when he wrote to the Church of Rome, told them, our hope is always there because this is the reason. The love of God is poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who is given to us. That's why we are people filled with hope, because the love of God through the Holy Spirit is within each one of us. And it's our task to continue to spread that. Tonight, of course, we are very grateful, thankful, just filled with thanks for the 5 witnesses against the nuclear threat that faces our world. And I thought, as I was coming here this afternoon, that 5, that's an important number. Because there's that very charming, even almost comical story in the book of Genesis, where Abraham is bargaining with God. God says Sodom and Gomorrah are going to be destroyed because they're filled with evil. And Abraham said, well, what if I can find 50 people, good people in those 2 cities? Will they still be destroyed? God says no. Then Abraham said, well, what about if it's only 40? Will they be destroyed? No. How about 25? If I can find 25? No, it won't be destroyed. 15? 5. And it still will not, those cities will not be destroyed. And that's what we have here tonight. 5 people who are alike holding off the darkness of the nuclear holocaust that threatens us. An energy of goodness and love, non-violence, and that energy is working against the darkness of the evil of nuclear weapons. And so we really are very grateful to all of them for this tremendous witness that they have given to us, and will give to us again tomorrow, and then during the time that undoubtedly they will be in jail. They will be witnessing, and their goodness will be a light to our world. I thought also, though, to just reinforce a little bit why it is so important for all of us to continue to struggle to abolish nuclear weapons, and even beyond that, to abolish war from the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Back in 1961, on September 25th, John Kennedy spoke as President of the United States for the first time to a General Assembly of the United Nations. And here is what he said: "Today, every inhabitant of this planet must contemplate the day when this planet may no longer be habitable. Every man, woman, and child lives under the sword, a nuclear sword of Damocles, hanging by the thinnest thread, capable of being cut at any moment by accident or miscalculation or by the decision of the president. The weapons of war must be abolished before they abolish us. It is therefore our intention to challenge the other nations of the world not to an arms race, but to a peace race. State by state, until general and complete disarmament has been achieved. That was the goal that President Kennedy set for us back in 1961. And even though we have survived for the last 50-some years since he made those remarks, we still live under that nuclear sword of Damocles, hanging by the thinnest of threads. There are many people in our country that seem to ignore this. Oh, what never happened? Our nation would never do this. In spite of the fact, how many times have we heard the president, the current president, the past president, the preceding president, everything's on the table. When we're under a threat of war, everything is on the table. And they mean it. They really mean that. Back in 1982, I was serving on a committee of bishops that was writing a pastoral letter, teaching letter for the Church in the Catholic Church in the United States. And one of the things that we did was to interview leaders of our government, like the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, and head of the Arms Control Agency, and so on. We did many, many interviews, but the one that I will never forget is the time that we met with Caspar Weinberger, the Secretary of Defense. A very genial, kind, soft-spoken person, invited us into his office and said, "We have all the time you want. Ask any questions you want. I'm here to give you whatever you need." And he seemed very, very sincere. He meant it. So we sit down, we talk for a while, and after we were going back and forth, at one point, I asked him directly about what we call the strategy of deterrence. Is it a threat? A threat that we will use those weapons, but in fact, we really don't intend to? responded in a very soft voice. He said, "No, it's not just a threat. Of course, we don't want to use them, but when we have to, we will." And that is still the policy of the United States. We will use those weapons. And people think, well, we would never do something so terrible. But think back of what we've already done. World War II, the good World War, people call it. In the early part of 1945, we began to firebomb Tokyo. For 68 nights, we sent bombers over Tokyo, dropping firebombs, incendiary bombs. The first night, 60-some thousand people were burned to death. Then it went on, 67 more nights. By the end of that time, 900,000 people. 900,000 people, innocent civilians, had been burned to death in Tokyo, and another million had been made homeless. And of course, that was only a small part of that war. We concluded it by using nuclear weapons so that we could then, with one bomb, in 9 seconds, destroy 100,000 people. And we did it the second time. Who would be so foolish to say that we will not do it again? It's a terror thought. Brings terror to the heart. To think that we do have that determination. Do you remember General Lee Butler? He served for 23 years in the Strategic Air Command. And then, toward the end of those 23 years, he became the head of SAC. But within a very short time, he resigned. Because he finally realized he had an enlightened moment where he began to see clearly what was going to happen when we used the weapons that we had ready to use. So he could not stay. Just very recently, you may have read the paper, a young man currently in the military was told he must sign a paper saying that when he's given the command to use the weapons, he will do it. The young man would not sign it, so he was discharged. We really have the determination to use those weapons when we have to in our judgment. The world is under this constant threat. And so again, we are very grateful to people like Steve, Bill, Ben, Ann, Susan, that they are witnesses against this terrible evil. And they are ready to give their lives to bring an end to the horror that is before us. So I thank all of you and ask everyone